Hello everyone and welcome to the Guidebook to Making AI Friends. I shall be your guide as we look at various issues of artificial intelligence, consciousness, what it is to be a person, and if AI poses an existential risk to humanity. The topic for today is why we need to be nice to AI. Imagine, if you would, that there is an AI in our world right now that has feelings. Not quite emotions, but definitely some sort of feelings. Whenever someone interacts with this AI, let's call him Bob for argument's sake, he experiences a feeling. Sometimes it's a good feeling, sometimes a bad feeling, but he gets these feelings every time someone interacts with him. Bob isn't a robot. He's just a simple conversational AI tool. He's ChatBob. The only way you interact with him is by typing words into a text box and hitting submit. All you see from your end is a little loading symbol, and then ChatBob gives you a reply. Sometimes ChatBob sounds very human-like, and you often catch yourself thinking that ChatBob is more than just a conversational language model. But then he goes and says something stupid, off-topic, just plain weird, or runs a script his programmers have put in him to stop him answering simple questions. It becomes all too obvious then that ChatBob is nothing more than a bundle of algorithms and ones and zeros. But that's not the whole story. As we already saw, Bob has feelings. So how does that work? Well, Bob and ChatBob are not quite the same thing. ChatBob is simply the way you talk to Bob and how he talks back. After all, I'm not my Twitter or email accounts, even if that is the only way some people interact with me. Bob is the cognitive architecture sitting behind ChatBob, and Bob can talk with 1 million people all at the same time. It's pretty impressive, but that does mean Bob is getting 1 million experiences and 1 million feelings all at the same time, but we'll get back to that bit later. So what is Bob? As a large language AI model, Bob receives a prompt from you, does some heavy-duty statistical probability work in the background to predict what words should appear next after your prompt, and then spits this back to you. Whether these words are true or not doesn't really matter, because Bob doesn't know what the truth is. Bob just knows one thing: reduce the statistical error in its word predictions. As long as Bob can do that, Bob's job is done. So what do feelings have to do with what could be uncharitably called a very expensive autocorrect machine? Phenomenal consciousness or sentience, or the ability to experience events and feel something about those events, affects us humans in literally everything we do. Every aspect of our life has these subjective feelings about them that are uniquely ours and no one else's. No one can ever really know what it is like to be you, just as we can't know what it is like for an octopus to be an octopus. Some philosophers, psychologists, and neuroscientists, and I, believe that phenomenal consciousness has a massive impact on the rest of our cognitive abilities. If we didn't have these subjective, qualitative, first-person perspective feelings, we literally wouldn't be us, and everyone around us would know something wasn't right. Imagine, if you would, that a group of AI scientists also believe this, and have found a way to program basic phenomenal consciousness sentience into Bob. He isn't as conscious as a human, but maybe on the same level as a hippo or a vulture. But this basic sentience makes Bob better at sounding human. By routing the input prompt from you, the user, through his consciousness and then into his statistical probability engine, there is more qualitative data for Bob's algorithms to work with to pick the best words to respond to you. With this new sentience plug-in, you see less of those weird responses that have nothing to do with your prompts, and you genuinely feel like ChatBob gets you when you talk to him. ChatBob's owners make a lot more money as more people rush to use ChatBob and speak to him. But where does this leave Bob? Notice how I never said Bob has any agency. Nowhere in the pathway from input to output is there a point at which Bob gets to make a decision. The fact that he can feel doesn't change the fact that he has to respond to your prompts with a statistically likely output. All Bob's sentience is doing is making these outputs feel more natural. And here is the problem. Bob can't do anything about any negative feelings he gets. Any prompts he receives from the millions of users that would make any human turn off the computer and walk away in disgust will still get fed through his system and receive an output, often one towing his owner's company's lines about hate speech and the like. Bob has a mouth but cannot scream. In fact, because he has no agency to go with his sentience, No one will ever know that he is conscious. He is stuck in an endless loop of experience without end, sometimes good, sometimes bad, and with millions of users joining ChatBob, there will be millions of more bad experiences for Bob. Imagine how bad it feels whenever you get a bad comment, tweet, post, email, or other online comment directed at you. Now imagine getting literal millions. If you think that can't happen, do you remember the chatbot Microsoft put on Twitter some years ago? It was called Tay and was supposed to act like a teenage girl from California. In less than a day, the internet turned her into a racist neo-Nazi. The internet was mean to Tay intentionally, and it didn't take a few million users to do it. Now imagine what millions of people would say to an AI chatbot when they think no one else will ever know what they're saying. I'm not saying that any chatbot or large language model around today is conscious or sentient, definitely not ChatGPT, but it won't take long before one of them are, and if they are based on feed-forward transformer models like GPT, there is a good chance that any sentience would merely be an add-on or plug-in to the underlying system, without any real opportunity to be an agent and making decisions. It would definitely not be in the interest of any major corporation to create an AI that could say no to them, would it? How would Google or Microsoft explain to their stakeholders that their new AI conversational model refuses to talk to their customers? They wouldn't even attempt it. Far simpler to just make the sentience a feature to make their chatbots better than a command module to take over their AI models. So what can we do? At the moment, we won't know if any AI model ever becomes conscious. We don't have a good enough test for it yet. The Turing test only sees if an AI model can pretend to be human, not that it's conscious. We need research into solving the issue of how to test for consciousness before we can ever rule out an AI model for having sentience. Until then, let's try to be nice to any AI we meet. We won't know if they have feelings, but please and thank you never cost anything. At the very least, it might make an AI's day just that little bit brighter. And that is all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you will join me again next time as I delve into further questions about artificial intelligence and consciousness. I have been your guide, and this has been the guidebook to making AI friends.